Hi, this is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative, and today I am on the Elizabeth Craft Designs blog with this cute sandcastle pop-up card featuring the sandcastle die set in the Yosette Vandenberg line, which I just love. I think it's super cute. So here are all the die cut pieces you need, and this is the adorable sandcastle die set. So I have die cut out the larger castle pieces, the pail, the bucket or the handle, and the shovel, as well as the little trim pieces for the castle. That's got adhesive sheet on the front of it. We'll be adding glitter to that later. And then I've got this piece of turquoise cardstock that I die cut using the Adventure Edges die set using the sort of wave shape. I have added some soft finish cardstock in rust. Just these are little tiny pieces that were extras that I've just cut down to fit behind the window openings in the castle. So I'll adhere those down later. And then I have that sandbank that I basically freehand drew and just cut out of some craft cardstock. So I'm going to add some shading to some of these pieces using my Distress inks. Now you see I've got 4 there. I'm actually only going to use 2 of them right now. So I'm going to use Salty Ocean and my little blending tool here to add some blue tones shading to this turquoise piece. So I'm just going from the craft mat onto the top edge of the waves as well as into the body of it a bit. I'm using a circular blending motion, and I'm not worried about having it be smooth or, you know, even, because I want it to be pretty organic and just add a slight hint of that blue color to the wave shape. And now I'm going to take Vintage Photo and do the same thing along all the edges of the sandcastle. So I'm just, again, going from the craft mat onto each edge using a circular motion. And again, not trying to be careful or, you know, too regular. I wanted it to just be really organic looking and kind of natural, just to give it some shading. Now the top edge of this lower piece doesn't need any shading because that's going to be covered by one of the trim pieces. And then the sides of this tower need it, but then the bottom doesn't because that will be covered up in the pop-up. And I'm going to do the same thing for the sandbank on the top edge and the bottom edge. Now the bottom edge will be covered by the waves, but when you see me do the lower portion, I am going to go into the cardstock a little bit to get some shading and dimension just into the overall bank itself, and that does show even when the waves cover it up. Now for my tiny pieces, I'm using my Spectrum Noir gray markers. So this is my CT4 marker, and I'm using the chisel side, and I'm just going down the 2 edges in the bottom and then under the line that's embossed on it for the top of the pail, like the lip of the pail, and then the inside of the pail as well, which is also an embossed shape on that piece when it's die cut. Then I'm doing the inside of the shovel as well as one edge, and then I'm going to go around all the edges of the little handle, which that's die cut out of some pewter cardstock. That striped paper is actually from the Sailor's Life paper pack, super cute, and I just had to have like a stripy bucket. I just thought that was really fun. And now I'm taking my IG6 marker. First one was IG4. I might have said CT4, I hope not. And I'm going around the lower edge of the handle, under the lip of the bucket, and down one side and the bottom a little bit more. And then I'm going to right here. And then I'm going to go on the inside edge of the bucket as well, front edge. And then I will blend that a little bit with my CT4, and that actually blended really nicely. I was kind of surprised. And then I'm doing more IG6 on the inside of the shovel and IG4 to blend it. And then I'll add the handle to the bucket using some liquid glue pen. And that's a little tricky. It was a little tricky to line up the ends, so I was glad I had liquid adhesive on that to make it real easy to kind of move around a little bit. And now I'm going to take the rust pieces and just add some random Vintage Photo ink onto those pieces just to keep them from looking really flat when they're behind the window openings in the castle. And then I'm going to adhere all those little pieces into the window, behind the window openings with my liquid glue pen. So nothing fancy happening there, really simple, just an easy way to fill in those holes. And again, adding more Vintage Photo to these and just gluing them in place. Now for my little detail trim pieces for the castle, I'm going to be adding glitter to them. So you can see they have clear double-sided adhesive tape on the front This is 85-pound white soft finish cardstock. The adhesive is on the front so I can add the glitter. This is Sand Dunes glitter from the Beach Glitter Palette. Love it. And I'm just going to peel the adhesive, half of the adhesive off the front, and then dip that into the pot of glitter, and then tap off the excess, and then hold that piece with my hand, the glittered piece, part of the part that's covered, and then dip the rest of it into the little pot. And then I will tap off the excess and rub it down with my finger to really bring out the shine in the glitter. And then the coffee filter is for this bigger piece. So I'm going to peel the adhesive off one end, glitter up what I can, hold the glittered piece, and then pour glitter over the rest of it because it's a longer piece. And then again, rub that down with my finger to really bring out the shine. And I will do the exact same thing with the pot and the two little pieces to complete all 4 of these pieces. Now I've got an A2 size card base out of 100-pound white soft finish cardstock, and I'm using the General Pop-Ups die set, and I'm going to be using the what I call the 2 stair-step pop-up die here. And I'm lining it up, those little nubs that you see there on the edges of the die, with the score or the fold line in the card, and this is the inside of the card base. And then I'm about in the middle, and I'm going to just adhere it down with my paper tape, hold it in place, and run it through my die cutter. Okay, so I've run it through now. Time has passed, and I'm going to pop those slits that have been cut forward. So I'm just using my finger and then the tweezers for the smaller one in the middle, and to get them to go forward. And then I'm going to fold the card base closed to train those folds to fold in when the card closes. So that's the pop-up mechanism, and I will go over that with a bone folder just to really reinforce those folds. Now to finish off my sandbank in the front, I have kind of eyeballed where I'm putting the pail and the shovel, and I've drawn 2 pencil lines, and now I'm cutting slits into the sandbank with my craft knife so I can bury the pail and the shovel a little bit into the sandbank. So I'm going to just erase my pencil marks now that the lines are cut and go over both of them with my IG4 marker for a little bit of shading. And then I'm going to darken down the shading just a tiny bit on the shovel because, I don't know, I'm kind of perfectionistic that way, I guess. And then I've got 6mm adhesive on the back of the pail, and I'll just tuck it into that slit and adhere it down to the front of the bank. And then I'll do the exact same thing with my shovel, except using liquid adhesive this time because it's so skinny. And I'll set that aside to dry. Now to complete the card base, you can see I've added 10mm and 6mm adhesive all around the openings of the pop-up in the card base on the front, and then about 1.5 inches into the back. And then I have a piece of light blue cardstock that is 5.5 by about 6 3/4, and then it's scored at the 4 1/4 mark. And I'm going to just fold this, line it up with the card front, and then fold it over the back. I've removed the adhesive off the back tape, and then I will just do the same on the front and fold it down. And so that is what completes the card base, and it covers up the pop-up mechanism from the outside so you don't notice it. And then I'm going to use my sandbank to cover up anything that doesn't quite line up on the front of the card base with the blue paper. And now I've got 6mm adhesive across the lower edge of the card, and now I'm going to add some liquid glue to the rolling waves. And then I'm going to cover up part of the lower edge of the sandbank, it's about 5/8 of an inch that I cover from like at the top points of the waves. And then just trim off the rest of that wave piece. When I originally cut it, it was probably about 5.5 by, I don't know, 1.5 inches, and I do wind up cutting off a fair amount of it. Now to complete the card front, I'm using my Misty, and I would highly advise you and endorse using a stamp platform for this, because I'm stamping Life's a Beach from the Beach Sentiment stamp set onto the front of the card. And I'm using a stamp platform because I wanted to make sure that I was going to get a good impression, and the stamp platform allowed me to do that. And now I'm using a micron pen, and I'm just adding 3 dots to the end of this. So Life's a Beach, ... It's going to continue to the inside of the card. And then I'm using the kindergarten bird drawing method to draw some seagulls on the front. So it's just an upside down W. And then I'm going to thicken these birds up a little bit with this pen. So no fancy drawing skills required. If you could draw birds in kindergarten, you can do it now. And that basically completes the front of the card. So for the inside, we have to adhere my castle together. So here are the glittered trim pieces, and I'm going to use liquid adhesive to adhere them onto the castle base pieces. So this one goes across that shorter piece on the top, and you just have to line it up a little bit. Now these 3 individual pieces, 2 are smaller than, and 1 is slightly bigger, only slightly. So the bigger piece goes on the tall tower, and the 2 smaller pieces go on the short, or the, I don't know, double tower piece. So just be aware of that before you try to adhere them down, because it's a little tricky to tell which is which, and you don't want to do them wrong. So again, use liquid adhesive on that, and now I'm going to add them to the pop-up mechanism on the inside of the card. So I want to trim down the tall tower, because I'm going to put that on the second step. So I'm going to cut off the size of the lower step, and I just marked it with a pencil by holding it up against it, trimmed it off. And now I'm going to add this to the upper step. And this will keep it in proportion to the rest of the die set. It won't be like abnormally tall the way it would be if I didn't trim it down. So I'm adding 6mm adhesive tape to the front faces only of those stair steps in the pop-up mechanism. You don't want to add it anywhere else, because if you do, it's going to interfere with the mechanism and stick to places you don't want it to stick when you fold it closed. So I've just adhered the tall tower into the middle of the upper step, and now I'm going to realize I need to put my lower castle pieces together. So I will add 10mm adhesive to the back of the shorter castle piece and adhere that onto the front of the 2-tower castle piece. And I'm going to get it a little bit wonky, but that's okay, because it's a sandcastle. Sandcastles aren't going to be perfect. And then I will adhere this down to the front step. Now you have to make sure that you clear the fold line on the pop-up mechanism when you adhere the pieces in place so that it will fold properly. So that's probably the most important thing to be aware of. Now I'm adding the sun, also from the Beach Cinnamon stamp set, to the inside of my card base with, again, Gina K Designs amalgam black ink. And I will then stamp a piece of 85-pound white soft finish cardstock. This was like an extra piece I had, with the greeting "Soak up the sun," and this I'm going to stamp several times to get a really nice impression, and then I'm going to die cut it out. So I'm going to color my sun on the inside of my card base with my CT1 Spectrum Noir marker. The yellow kind of matches the yellow cardstock I used here. So I've die cut out the greeting with the second smallest die in the Stitch Circles die set, and then I've die cut out a piece of yellow cardstock with the second smallest die in the Dotted Scallop Circles die set, and those layer together very, very nicely with some tape. So I'm going to use some 6mm adhesive tape to adhere both of these pieces together, and then I will adhere it down into the front of the inside of the card base. And it kind of simulates the look of a sun with those little scallopy edges. That's kind of what I was thinking. And so now I'm just going to adhere it down into the middle of the card lower card base. And so I decided I needed a little bit of a shadow line under the castle, so I grabbed my CT4 marker and just draw a line under it. And then I decided I needed some of that light blue pulled into the inside of the card base to help it unify the card a little bit. I had the sand color going from the front to the inside, but I thought it would be nice to have that light blue color. So I grabbed my tumbled glass distress ink and a large flat brush. I've just watered down the distress ink, and I'm just basically scribbling it around the castle on the upper inside of the card base. So nothing fancy happening here. I'm literally just scribbling with that brush. And I'm kind of avoiding the sun because I didn't want to have anything interfere with the yellow in the sun. But I just scribbled it around and then let it dry. And then finally, I decided to add some glitter to the waves on the front of the card. Now, in my written instructions on the Elizabeth Craft Designs blog, I do have this step earlier in the process because it would have been easier to do this before you adhere the waves down, obviously. But if you watch my videos, you know that my projects evolve as I make them, so I didn't realize I wanted this glitter until the end. So the written instructions may not line up with the order in which I do it on the video, but I try to make the written instructions make more sense in terms of how you would put it together if you know what you're doing ahead of time. So I let the glitter dry, and then I rubbed off the excess and rubbed that down with my finger to bring out the shine on that as well. And that is the completed card, and I was pretty happy with it. I like that the front is kind of simple, and then you open it up to this sort of wow factory castle pop-up on the inside, and man, it's not real thick, and it really actually didn't take that long to make. It took me about an hour to put the whole thing together. So for a pop-up card, I didn't think that was too bad. So I hope I've inspired you to try out this adorable sandcastle die set. So cute. And then combined with those general pop-ups, I think that makes for a really fun summery card. And those general pop-ups dies really make your life a lot easier if you're interested in making pop-up cards. And it comes with all different shapes and sizes, like 2 steps, 3 steps, 1 step, taller, skinnier, shorter, you name it. So I think those are definitely worth checking out. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment. Love getting comments. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do that as well. Thanks so much. Have an amazing day.